A cop gets killed in the line of duty. The investigation starts. The reports get filed. And buried inside the forensic analysis, inside the after-action review that the public never sees, is a single line that changes everything. The issued weapon malfunctioned, not because the officer did something wrong, not because the ammunition was faulty, because the department made a procurement decision 3 years earlier based on a contract price, not on real-world performance data. And that decision, made in a conference room by people who would never carry that weapon into a dark hallway, cost someone their life. This happens more than you think, and it never makes the news, because here's the truth that the firearms industry does not want to say out loud. Not every agency carries what you think they carry. Not every contract tells the full story. And the gap between what gets announced in a press release and what actually gets strapped to an officer's hip in a high-risk situation is wider than most people in this space are willing to admit. Right now, in 2026, there are purchasing decisions being made at the county level, the federal task force level, the specialized unit level, that would completely change the way you think about duty pistol selection. Documents that exist inside procurement systems the public cannot access. Requisitions that bypass the standard-approved vendor list entirely. We got into those records, and what we found is not what anyone expected. Stay with this, because by the time this list is done, you will never look at a police officer's holster the same way again. Number 1. Glock 17 Gen 5. Here is a number that should stop you cold. Over 60% of law enforcement agencies in the United States that transitioned to a new duty pistol in the last 5 years stayed on the same platform they already had. Not because they evaluated the market and concluded nothing better existed, because the cost of switching, the retraining, the reholstering, the recertification of armorers is so operationally expensive that most departments cannot justify it regardless of what the new pistol offers. That single fact explains more about the Glock 17 Gen 5's dominance than any specification sheet ever could. But here is what actually makes it dangerous to replace. The Gen 5 addressed every legitimate criticism of the previous generation without changing a single thing about how the pistol feels in a trained hand. The marksman barrel tightened accuracy. The NDLC finish hardened the surface against the kind of sustained abuse that duty carry produces over years. The removal of the finger grooves opened the platform to a wider range of hand sizes without requiring officers to relearn their grip. And underneath all of that engineering is something no competitor has been able to replicate in 30 years of trying. An institutional trust so deep it has become invisible. Officers do not think about their Glock, they think about the threat. That cognitive disappearance of the weapon under stress is worth more than any feature any competitor has ever introduced. Caliber, 9mm. Capacity, 17+1. Barrel length, 4.49 inches. Weight, 25.95 ounces loaded. Price range, $499 to $599. The verdict. The default choice for large agencies where logistics, training infrastructure, and armorer certification costs matter more than marginal performance gains. Switching away from this platform requires a departmental justification that very few procurement officers are willing to write. Number 2. SAUER P320 M17/M18. In 2017, the United States Army made a decision that shocked the firearms industry. After decades of the Beretta M9, after billions invested in a platform the military had built its entire small arms logistics around, the Army walked away. They ran one of the most rigorous pistol evaluations in modern military history and handed the contract to SAUER. Most people treated that as a military story. Law enforcement procurement officers treated it as a data source, because what happened next told them everything they needed to know. The M17 and M18 went into active combat deployments. Desert heat, Arctic cold, sand ingestion that would destroy lesser mechanisms. Round counts that exceeded what most duty officers fired in an entire career. and the performance data that came back was extraordinary. But the detail that changed law enforcement procurement conversations was not the durability data. It was modular. The P320's serialized fire control unit, the small internal chassis that is legally the firearm, means a department can purchase one platform and configure it into full-size patrol pistols, compact plainclothes weapons, and everything in between without purchasing separate serialized firearms. The budget implications of that single engineering decision are enormous for departments managing weapons across multiple unit types. One platform, one armorer certification, one part inventory, multiple operational configurations. No other pistol on this list offers that. Caliber, 9mm. Capacity, 17 plus 1 standard / 21 plus 1 extended. Barrel length, 4.7 inches M17 / 3.9 inches M18. Weight, 29.6 ounces loaded. Price range, $599 to $699. The verdict. The strategic choice for agencies managing multiple unit types under a single budget. The modularity advantage compounds over time in ways that make the higher per unit cost essentially irrelevant within 2 procurement cycles. Number 3. Smith & Wesson M&P 9M 2.0. There's a pattern inside law enforcement procurement that nobody talks about publicly. Departments switch away from Smith & Wesson, try something newer, something with more marketing momentum, and then, quietly without announcement, they come back. Not because the M&P 9M 2.0 is the most exciting pistol in the duty category, because it does something that procurement officers have learned to value above almost everything else. It makes average officers shoot better. That sounds simple. It is not. The M2.0 redesign targeted one specific problem that plagued the original M&P line, a trigger that felt mushy, indistinct, and gave officers no clear feedback about where the reset was under stress. The new trigger with its audible and tactile reset, combined with 4 interchangeable palm swell grip inserts, created a platform that accommodates the full range of officer hand sizes, without modification requests, without complaints, and without the qualification score drops that typically accompany a platform transition. Here's the number that matters. Qualification pass rates. When a department transitions to a new pistol and pass rates drop, that department has a problem that goes beyond the range. It has officers in the field who are less proficient with their duty weapon than they were 6 months ago. The M&P 9M 2.0 has a documented history of moving qualification scores in the opposite direction on transition. That data is in the procurement files of departments across the country, and it is why Smith & Wesson keeps winning contracts that nobody predicted they would win. Caliber, 9mm. Capacity, 17 plus 1. Barrel length, 4.25 inches. Weight, 27.2 ounces. Loaded price range, $499 to $579. The verdict. The ergonomic choice. Best suited for departments with diverse officer populations where qualification consistency across the full range of users matters more than any single performance metric. The return rate to this platform after switching away tells you everything. Number 4. Walther PDP. Stop for a second and think about what law enforcement carry is going to look like in 5 years. Red dot sights on duty pistols, not on tactical team weapons, on every patrol officer's holster. That transition is already happening faster than most departments are publicly acknowledging, and it is going to create a problem for every agency that purchased optics-ready pistols that were not actually designed for optics from the beginning. Retrofitted optic systems have a fundamental engineering problem. The slide was not designed with a red dot in mind, which means the relationship between the optic height, the bore axis, and the iron sight co-witness is a compromise, a mechanical afterthought. And in a high-stress shooting situation, that compromise creates a moment of visual confusion that can cost an officer critical fractions of a second. Walther built the PDP before the duty red dot market fully matured, and they made a decision that looked premature at the time and looks prescient right now. They designed the entire pistol around the optic, the slide height, the sight system, the optic footprint, all of it engineered so that a red dot sits at the correct height, overbore without adapters, without shimming, without the zero shift problems that have created warranty claims and armor headaches at departments across the country. The trigger is the best factory trigger in this category, not competitive with the best. The best, and that is not a marketing language. That is the consistent conclusion of independent evaluation reports from agencies that ran the PDP through formal assessment alongside every competitor on this list. Caliber 9mm, capacity 18+1, barrel length 4 inches compact, 4.5 inches full size, weight 25.8 ounces unloaded full size. Price range $649 to $749. The verdict. The forward-thinking choice. Departments that are 1 to 2 procurement cycles away from mandatory red dot integration should be evaluating this platform now, not after they have already purchased a system that will require expensive retrofitting. Mid-video pattern, interrupt. Here is something that will change the way you interpret everything else on this list. The single most important factor in law enforcement firearm performance has nothing to do with the firearm. It is training frequency. And training frequency is determined almost entirely by ammunition budget. A department that issues a $700 pistol and can only afford to run officers through qualification twice a year has made a worse decision than a department that issues a $450 pistol and uses the savings to fund monthly live fire training. The cheaper pistol with more training produces more proficient officers every single time. The data on this is not ambiguous. This means that every price difference on this list is actually a training frequency calculation in disguise, and it means that the most expensive pistol is not always the best procurement decision, even when it is the better pistol. Keep that in mind for the next 3 entries, because it changes the math considerably. We focus on what actually works when the stakes are high. If that's how you think about firearms, join us by subscribing. Number 5. Springfield Echelon, the Tech Disruptor. Every few years, a gun comes out that does not just compete with what exists. It changes what people expect from a duty pistol entirely. The Echelon is that gun. There are departments and procurement budgets where optics-ready capability and real modularity feel like luxuries reserved for special units. Officers running aging platforms, adapter plates that introduce failure points, grip frames that fit nobody the way they should. A gun that solves all of that at once is not common. The Echelon solves all of that and then keeps going. Springfield built the variable interface system directly into the core of this pistol. The serialized chassis sits inside interchangeable grip modules. The gun adapts to the officer, not the other way around. The optic cut goes straight into the slide, most popular red dot footprints. No adapter plates, no extra height, no additional failure point sitting between the shooter and their zero. This is not a gun that made compromises to hit a price point. It is a gun that looked at what the market was charging for genuine innovation and decided that number was too high. Caliber 9mm. Capacity 17+1/20+1. Barrel length 4.5 inches. Weight 29 ounces unloaded. Price range $599 to $699. The verdict. The Echelon belongs in any serious conversation about modern duty pistols, especially for departments and individuals who want forward-thinking engineering without a 4-digit price tag. Not a legacy platform, not a compromise. The agencies that evaluated it stopped debating whether real innovation at this price was possible. They qualified with it and never looked back. That value is worth something. Number 6. Staccato 2011 Duty Line, the Elite Shift. There's a certain kind of gun that starts in competition and slowly finds its way into holsters that actually matter. The Staccato 2011 Duty Line is exactly that. A platform born on the shooting stage, now being worn by federal agents, SWAT operators, and specialized units who decided that good enough is no longer acceptable. There are assignments and environments where a standard issue polymer striker just does not inspire the same confidence. High-risk warrants, protective details, operations where every single variable matters. A duty gun that performs adequately on the range becomes a liability the moment the situation demands more than adequate. And those moments do not announce themselves in advance. Staccato took the 2011 architecture and rebuilt it for people whose lives depend on the answer. The flat trigger, the grip-to-hand fit, the short reset. None of it is accidental. It is engineering aimed at one outcome, that the gun disappears under pressure and the shooter just shoots. This is not something gun agencies adopt because it looks impressive in a brochure. It is a gun that shows up on the hips of HRT operators and specialized units because serious people evaluated it seriously and it kept passing. Caliber 9mm/.45 ACP. Capacity 17+1. Barrel length 4.15 inches. Weight 33 ounces unloaded. Price range $1,499 to $2,199. The verdict. The Staccato duty line belongs in the hands of anyone who has moved past standard issue and is ready to invest in something that earns its price every single day. Not a first gun, not a budget decision. The operators who carry one stop debating whether a better trigger matters under stress. They found out. That answer is worth something. The verdict. The intelligent budget choice for departments that understand the training frequency calculation. The mechanical quality is not a compromise. The price is a genuine competitive advantage that translates directly into officer proficiency when the savings are reinvested correctly. Climax. Everything on this list so far represents the established landscape of law enforcement procurement, platforms that have earned their positions through documented performance and institutional trust. The last two entries are different. They represent where law enforcement is going, not where it has been. And the agencies that have already made these selections are operating with a tactical and technological advantage that most of their counterparts will not catch up to for years. This is where the list gets serious. Number 7, FN509 Tactical. When elite federal units start making the same procurement decision independently of each other, it is not a coincidence. It is a signal. FBI Hostage Rescue Team. Certain Homeland Security components, specialized SWAT units in major metropolitan areas, all moving toward the same suppressor-capable platform at roughly the same time. That convergence does not happen by accident. It happens because operational after-action data is pointing all of them in the same direction simultaneously. The law enforcement suppressor conversation is almost never framed correctly in public. This is not about stealth. Hollywood invented suppressor mythology, and the firearms community never fully corrected it. The operational reality is about two things that have nothing to do with silence: communication and hearing preservation. In a dynamic entry situation, inside a structure, the concussive effect of unsuppressed gunfire creates a communication breakdown that has been documented in after-action reports across multiple agencies as a contributing factor in friendly fire incidents and missed threat identification. A suppressed platform does not eliminate that problem. It reduces it enough to matter, and hearing damage among law enforcement officers is an occupational health crisis that departments are only beginning to quantify. The long-term liability implications of that data are pushing risk management offices towards suppressor-capable platforms faster than any tactical argument ever could. The FN509. Tactical is not an accessory platform with a threaded barrel attached. It was engineered from the ground up for suppressed operation. The sight system, the operating system, the grip geometry, all of it designed around the reality of running a suppressor as standard equipment rather than an occasional attachment. Caliber 9mm. Capacity 17+1 standard/24+1 extended. Barrel length 4.5 inches threaded. Weight 28.7 ounces unloaded. Price range $849 to $999. The verdict. Specialized platform for units where suppressed operation is becoming standard rather than exceptional. The cost is real. The training investment is real. For the units that need this capability, no alternative on this list comes close to addressing the operational requirement as completely. Number 8. Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS. Every list has a conclusion that feels inevitable in retrospect. This is that conclusion, not because the Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS is the newest platform in law enforcement. Not because it has the most sophisticated engineering or the most impressive feature set, because it represents something that 30 years of real-world critical incident data has proven more conclusively than any controlled evaluation ever could. The pistol that disappears wins. Not disappears in the concealment sense, disappears in the cognitive sense. The weapon that a trained officer can deploy under maximum stress, with degraded motor function, with tunnel vision narrowing their field of view, with adrenaline disrupting every fine motor skill they have ever developed on a calm range, and still run correctly without conscious thought. That pistol wins every time, in every situation, against every competitor. The Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS has accumulated that status through a volume of real-world evidence that no other pistol on this list can match. Tens of thousands of critical incidents across hundreds of agencies over 3 decades. Every one of those incidents is data, and that data points in one direction with a consistency that should give every procurement officer and every individual carrier pause before they choose something newer, something more exciting, something with better marketing. The MOS optic cut adds the red dot capability that modern law enforcement operations increasingly require without changing a single thing about the platform that earned its trust in the first place. That is not a small engineering achievement. That is Glock understanding exactly what its institutional advantage is and protecting it intelligently. Caliber 9mm. Capacity 15+1. Barrel length 4.02 inches. Weight 23.63 ounces unloaded. Price range $599 to $699. The verdict. The universal answer. Compact enough for plainclothes. Capable enough for patrol. Proven enough for the situations where proven is the only thing that matters. 30 years of critical incident data is not a marketing claim. It is the most honest specification on this entire list. Every pistol on this list was selected by someone who is responsible for other people's lives. Not a reviewer, not a content creator, not a competitive shooter optimizing for range performance. Someone sitting in a procurement office knowing that the decision they were about to make would follow officers into the worst moments of their careers, into doorways, into traffic stops that went wrong, into situations where the only thing standing between a catastrophic outcome and a survivable one was the reliability of a mechanical device that fit in a holster. That weight does not show up in specification sheets. It does not appear in YouTube reviews or range day comparisons, but it is present in every single selection on this list. In the testing data, the qualification scores, the armor reports, the after-action reviews that the public never reads. Law enforcement does not choose firearms the way consumers choose firearms. They choose them the way engineers choose materials for structures that cannot fail, with evidence, with redundancy, with a margin for error that accounts for every variable that cannot be controlled when everything goes wrong at once. The pistols on this list earn their place in that process, and the question that process ultimately cannot answer, the question that only experience under real pressure can answer, is the one we will leave with you. If you had to trust one of these in a real-world situation, which one would it be?